episode of Wandering Middle Eastern Teacher. So I'm Abu Laith, as always, and today we have Mr. Jim Richardson here. First, thank you for being here today.
Very glad to be here. Thank you.
So he's going to bring in another aspect. This will draw in a little bit more of what is education like as viewed by the administrator, the principal, the head, the schoolmaster. So first, to get us started, why did you become a teacher or enter education?
I wanted to be a teacher starting when I was in my next to the last year in high school. I really enjoyed the teachers that I had, especially one particular teacher in history. And I just continued to follow that as I went on into the university, and then went ahead and got my master's degree, and just stayed in education my whole life. Just really enjoyed it. Starting from what we call our junior year, the 11th grade.
Okay, next question. So during your educational career, what did you teach? What subjects? What grade levels? What has been your experience in education?
I started off teaching in the middle school section when I came out of the university. And then I felt like I was doing more counseling with students than I was actually teaching. And they definitely needed it. And so I went to the university back to get my master's degree, and then went into full-time counseling about a year after I got my degree. And really enjoyed doing that. Some of the time, though, in school counseling, it is more administrative type of work than it is having a lot of time for the kids. And I really wanted to have time with the kids. And I tried to force myself to that. Then I went overseas and worked in some social work, and eventually went into, I was the headmaster of an American school, and thoroughly enjoyed that.
What was involved in that decision to become an administrator, a headmaster?
Well, sometimes you don't make a decision. Sometimes you're kind of forced into it. The administrator that was there, I was on the board of governors at the time, and it appeared that the administrator just up and quit. And so the board then asked if I would take over as administrator. And I knew a lot about the school because I had been on the board of governors, and that helped a lot. And thoroughly enjoyed being there for those years. We were in the process of expanding the American school, and that was a lot of challenges, but also a lot of fun trying to get it done.
So that leads into the next question. As an administrator, what are some of the areas that you have to think about and kind of think through carefully?
Wow.
I'm sure there are a lot.
I look, first of all, administrator has to plan. And you constantly have to have near vision, but you also have to have far vision. You must, I say you plan ahead at least 5 years in coursework. What type of student will you have? And your staffing you're going to need, the facilities you're going to need, resources you're going to need. Yes, they're going to change, but you must, I think, be out there to know what's going to happen. And again, I use the term a lot of times, put it in a jello type or soft cement type of mixture, because you can't get it to be hardened and fast. It will change.
Right.
You need to have, along with that planning, it's not you doing the planning administration, but it's starting with your board of governors. It's very important that they understand what the goals are, and teachers And as your new teachers come in, they need to also see what the goals are so that they're working. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody is working and towards that. So you just need to have all people involved in that type of planning.
Yeah, there's no room for someone to be a lone wolf and just whatever they want to do carry out. Like you have to work with others.
No way. And along with that planning, you've got to make sure that your facilities are in good shape. A lot of people think, I've got to have a new this or a new that. You don't have to have new facilities. I look at it that you must have clean, comfortable facilities with good lighting, and it needs to be quiet. One time I was doing some teaching on the side, and the school happened to be on a main road, and there were motorcycles going up and down the road all the time, and some of them would camp right outside the window. And
of course,
that doesn't quite lead to when you're trying to teach language. It doesn't quite work well. So you need to make sure it's quiet. Don't make it overcrowded. I've seen many people in students in desks just crowded. There's 3 where there should be 1. You need to make the facility where they're not overcrowded. Make sure that the room has some type of a board, a chalkboard, whiteboard, whatever is being used at the time. An old-fashioned chalkboard is still just as good as the whiteboard. And it's a lot cheaper to use. You can paint the blackboard again and make it refresh it with blackboard paint, and it works well. Then you don't have to get markers and worry about someone putting a permanent marker on the whiteboard, which all of that has happened before. So facilities are very, very important to look at. Then I looked at being an administrator. You need to make sure that you have resources, and with the internet that coming in now, you can have all kinds of resources now, whatever you want. I would suggest that a school have a good internet, especially available for teachers, and you can make it exclusive for teachers. Then you don't worry about people trying to surf and go someplace else. But that would be good to have a good internet. And most important is to have a good photocopier.
Yes.
Most schools are not available. Don't have the resources to have a computer for every kid. A few schools in the States are getting that way, but in an overseas situation, I've never seen that happen. So a good photocopier, will work.
Crucial.
Very, very important to have that. As a administrator, you need to have transparency in all decisions that you make. One of the hardest jobs you make as administrator, whether it's a company, whether it's a school, whatever it is, you need to tell people why you're making a decision. You need to have other people involved in that decision. Get your board of governors involved in it. Students, teachers, parents, depending on what the subject is. But they need to know when you've made a decision, why, what's gone behind this, what decisions have, what history do you have behind this, and that people will accept it a little bit more, especially if they've been involved in the planning. You will have more acceptance. So transparency, I think, is very important. I think the other thing would be, and it's hard for an administrator to be a mentor. When you're a mentor for students and you're a mentor for other teachers. It's very difficult to be a mentor for like new teachers that come in because you don't have the time for it.
Right.
So it's good to assign more of teacher who's been around for a while to that new teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But still, keep up with that new teacher and find out what problems they might be having.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the culture, it may be that that new teacher needs to learn some of the language,
Mm-hmm.
some of the basic words to get around. But all that would depend on what kind of culture you're in on something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Being a mentor for kids is get involved with them.
Mm.
Now, you're going to be their buddy.
Right.
That's one of the first things you learn. But you do need to get involved in things that they do, all the plays they're involved in.
Mm-hmm.
I read where one principal was a barber, and so after school he would cut kids' hair. Well, what a great time to sit there and talk.
Mm-hmm.
Barbers know how to talk like a bartender, and so and that's a great way
Mm-hmm.
to get to know the kids. But go to their plays, learn their names.
Mm-hmm.
I personally had a problem with that. Learning names. When I taught, I could always put a kid where he was in the classroom, at what period it was, but to get that name out was probably something cross wires out of my head. Even now, when I meet old students, I say, "Oh yes, I remember you. You said about 3 seats from the back." But get to know their names and get involved with them, and even in knowing what their music is, and Facebook, not necessarily communicating with them on Facebook, but knowing what they're saying and get the drift of where things are going.
Yeah.
It's very, very important.
Yeah, you mentioned so many good things there. That mentoring. Thinking back on my own experience teaching, I taught at 2 different schools. One of them, I very much felt a support of having other teachers helping me, working in a team, and a supervising teacher, the department chair, who helped me a lot. And then the other school, I was really all on my own all the time. Obviously, the second school, it was much rougher. And the research I've seen is that it is a substantial difference in how long new teachers last when they have a mentor and when they don't. And the second thing about like connecting with kids, like building that relationship in the community, that really allows you to do the job of an administrator when they know like you care first and foremost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You must care for students and teachers. And with teachers, many times you will have some parents who come in and complain about a teacher and all this. But I've told my teachers, I'll have your back. Now, when it's all over, maybe you've done something wrong. We'll just sit and discuss on that one. But and also, if you have a problem with a parent, let me know about it early, so that I don't want any surprises.
Right.
I don't like those phone calls at 10 o'clock at night saying so-and-so did this to my child. And so just keep me informed of what's happening.
Right.
I don't need to get involved unless you ask me to get involved. Teachers should be able to handle their problems in their classroom and so forth. So, which kind of gets us down to one of the subjects that was difficult, not difficult, but it's always difficult for administrators, I guess, is discipline versus counseling is the way I look at it. Because kids need discipline, as your own kids would in your family, but they also need counseling. When do you do that? How do you decide which is appropriate? In the international school where I taught, I did not have a counselor. And so there was no way for a kid to go off to the counselor and talk about problems they had. So if I felt like it was some kind of things were acting up, teacher was talking about a particular student, I'd go get them out of class and we'd go find a tree, and we'd sit down under a tree and talk about it. Find out what's happening, and that seemed to work well. That we could just no threat whatsoever. I was just Mr. Principal, and but if you got the kid who's talking back to a teacher, and I had one little boy. He happened to be a first grader, but he had grown up on the streets. He was adopted, and he was pinching girls' bottoms on the bus. And he got a discipline problem in the sense that he was called to the principal's office and others. So a little bit more discipline, a little bit more force behind it. And there are various forms of punishment. No, I didn't beat anybody. I used to joke and say my job was chief kid beater, but no. I did not. I didn't believe in that. If the parents wanted to do that at home, that was their job. I tried to do various forms of punishment. One I remember was I had a young man to plant a tree. Let him get out and think about why he had to do it, and dig that hole, get the tree planted. By the time he finished high school, he was proud. Excuse me. That was his tree.
In your role as an administrator, you were also involved in the hiring and searching for teachers. What were some of the qualities you looked for in a new teacher?
Oh, wow. Yes. I would, my job was to get teachers from the United States to the international school. I tried to make sure they had at least 2 years experience or more. That they were steady in the college, university they had attended, and not jump around from university to university or school district to school district. I also tried to get someone that wasn't a straight A student.
Okay.
And
What was
you
that?
think that's very unusual.
Yeah.
I had a couple of them that came that were that way. They didn't seem to understand why a student couldn't do well because things came so easy to them.
Right.
So for the student who was working hard, kind of floundering at times and all, they had no idea how to handle them. It was throwing out the information, you get it, I'll test you on it. And that did seem to work. Now I'm not talking about getting failing teachers that just barely made it through.
Right.
But we got some good teachers, very good teachers overseas. And moral integrity, and that was very, very important.
Yeah. All right. So this one may be a tough one it's a good one to end on, though. So in all of your time in education, what do you feel like is the biggest lesson you learned?
Yeah, you did end with a big one.
Yes.
I think it's that transparency that was very, very important, and I think there were times that maybe I wasn't as transparent as I should have been. And sometimes I'm a big guy, and I was told one time by a teacher that I was just a big guy and I had a big voice and I intimidated her because of it. I don't feel like I'm an intimidating type of person, but that's the way she saw me. Another one saw me as a real big guy. Her father had been a big guy, and there had been some problems with that too. Not much you can do with that. But I would think that probably I wasn't as transparent as I should have been. but I tried to love the students and the teachers as much as I could during the time I was there.
And ultimately, I feel like teachers and especially kids, they know which teachers, who cares about them and who doesn't really, who's in it for the paycheck or the weekend or the summer break.
One of the is some administrators will understand, and it's strange how you get a class that has a mixture. So you might have one class in the 5th grade, and they're just as sweet as can be. But the 6th grade class, and as they follow on up, maybe just mean as snakes. And there may be some kind of a phenomenon they can put a name on, but it was just the chemistry of the kids that were there. So you needed lots and lots of patience for that.
Amen. Yep.
And so at the end, I had a lot of students thank me for things. So, and that's your reward.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Richardson, for joining us today.
Pleasure.
So this has been the Wandering Middle Eastern Teacher. I'm Abulay. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned next time for more videos, more interviews with teacher, and more help, hopefully, for your classrooms. Thanks. Have a good day. Bye.